It is time. Drumroll please, we now finally have our book 4. The whole set is now here, or rather it will be at the end of this month, from Saturday the 29th of May 2021, just to make things explicitly clear. With that, Tower of the Storm, which is the name of book 4 as you can see, will, as with all the rest, be available on paperback and ebook from Amazon, from links and descriptions below, and all the other places will retroactively put into other videos, probably. Remember to do that. Point is, it is there so that if you've been keeping up with the series so far, completely fine if you haven't, because I realise it's quite a rate up in getting them out at, just for no need to artificially inflate delays between them. But go out through at your own pace if you wish to do so. Hopefully you will. Obviously it's up to you. Either way, if you've got that far, we can now finish off our adventure here with Philip Quint and all of his fellow characters. Also, like before, we'll be doing a live stream on this channel on the Saturday 29th itself, probably around midday, for a couple of hours, where we'll be reading extracts, interacting with you guys in the chat, just generally celebrating the book's release. Now, this would be the stage where I would give an overview, as the video title would suggest, and break down some of the stuff you might expect in the book, give teasers for the plot and whatever. But really in this case, especially with it being the culmination of this set of 4, and also specifically with how it ties into previous stuff, it will be difficult for me to talk about, say, specific characters, like what they're going through in the book, without giving major spoilers for what's happened previously. Especially tying into Book 3, Celestial Coup. Books 1 and 2, Gift of the Mancynn and the Arc of Angels, while obviously it's all flowing through in a single narrative, they are more their own distinct adventures. Books 3 and 4, Celestial Coup, Tower of the Storm, it's more like Infinity War and Endgame from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in which case, actually, this is not me trying to claim an equality of quality in any kind of respect, but sure, yeah, why not? Compare it to the Avengers. Avengers Assemble, so you're introducing your characters, well, together in one place, or either one. Arc of Angels, were then escalating, and then, as I say, my point, while Infinity War and Endgame are the same story, and originally they were just going to be called Infinity War Part 1 and 2, if you've seen those films, you'll know that because they were nevertheless rather different in their actual execution in terms of story, they ended up giving them under different titles. So here, technically they are 2 separate books, but this is very much following on from everything that was set up in the previous instalment. Long story short, and probably because of this video will be slightly shorter than some of the previous ones, we'll just say that, in more general terms, as has been set up in the whole premise of this series, we are looking at how the history of the human race, our progression technologically, socially, has been being guided secretly from the sidelines by the otherworldly Brethren Lords, this group of immortals from another plane of existence. And they're using their Mancynns, which are people who are specifically altered to have these different abilities that enable them to be like the spokesperson or to have the influence that's necessary. They have other human agents as well, plenty of human agents, but it's mainly through the Mancynn. Either way, they've been influencing all of our major progressions so that eventually Earth would reach a certain point, as it is in 2016 per these books, when they're set, that they can swoop in somehow that still hasn't been perfectly explained in the first 3 books. We've still got a little bit of mystery around that. They'll come in and they'll use Earth for some methodology that ties into what's happening in a wider multiversal conflict that's been going on for much longer. Although right now the different factions involved are more of in a Cold War state where there's no actual conflicts going on, but people are preparing and there's tensions, so forth, waiting for the first person to make a move. Kind of on that note though, as we are now seeing in this 4th book, the attempted execution of that Brethren Lord's plan, finally, they aren't alone in causing the danger here. Again, as will have been being set up in some of the previous titles, there is another faction who has been preparing for their own plot of their own, and acknowledging that the Brethren Lords are rather making their move soon, this other faction are also going to try to do this. It's about who's doing it first. And thus we have a cycle of escalation where they're now perpetually making each other act faster and more extremely to, again, try to be the one to, they will have the triumph. Thus, the Earth in the events of Tower of the Storm, which are only really taking place over a day. Despite the fact that the books are getting longer, like this one here, the story itself is just shy of 400 pages. In total, if you include the front and back matter, it's 404 pages. I would make an error not found, but I very much would like you to find it. Either way, yeah, the books are getting longer, however, the time frame in which they're taking place is getting shorter. Like, Gift of the Mancynn was over, like, a month over that, was, as I say, day here. Either way, over the course of this day, we are now finding that there are two, essentially, competing potentials for the end of the world. And with that, that means a whole extra challenge that wasn't needed for the main characters to try to deal with to make sure everything stays as safe as possible. There is technically a third thing going on as well, still focused around this Yorkshire village that I mentioned when talking about book 3, but this is our main thing that's going on. With that in mind, because it is a global threat, here now we have a lot more narrative threads going through the book, which adds to its length. In the previous titles, we have seen sometimes odd other perspectives from minor characters, which just see something coming from their eyes that might not immediately seem relevant, but then ties in some detail. Well, that's kind of setting up how, by the time we get to this book, we are now going to be shifting not between the perspectives of the main characters and the villains, but also between these other people around the world as the different countries and nations and groups and whoever reacts to everything that's going on. We have military forces gathering in Spain, because that's where one of the main areas is happening. We're going to see some of the political areas that were touched upon in some previous stories. We have, in a submarine off the coast of Africa, we're going to meet Variance Response Halo, who is a specialist team trying to take down one of the kind of other facets of the Present Lord's plan. There's more on the fringe of everything going on, although this specialist team don't really know what the wider scope of things are. And in the midst of that, yes, we then have a couple of our characters moving about between as they try to achieve what it is that they want to achieve out of the day. That's all, as I say, I can really specify, if you can call that specificity, because to say anything else would have spoilery implications about what's happened before. So with that, hopefully you will join us for the live stream on Saturday. Hopefully that's done a good enough job of setting up some of what's happening here as a culmination. I will say as a final thing, this is probably arguably the darkest of the books. Book 3, sections of that maybe give it a run for its money, but yes, acknowledging that because I was getting older as I was writing these. Like the first book I was writing started at least in 2013, I think. And obviously by the time I wrote this, well, I finished writing the first draft of this one in 2017 or 2018, something like that. So over a span of years, me changing as a person, obviously I've gone back and made edits and stuff very much so to bring them all up to what they are now. But yeah, just acknowledging that there is a, to use the exact same words again, progression towards dark themes. Just putting that out there, but that as well. If you haven't read the earlier books yet, of course, as will ever be the case, you've got your links down below to look at them as either paperback or ebook if you want to get a better taste for the franchise as a whole, even though more so I try to talk about other things outside of the current set of 4 books, where you've got other videos on your channel for that. Or whatever it is that you choose to do, of course, as ever, the main thing is that you just keep on yourself, as I am, in a couple of weeks' time, telling stories.